Hello there, everyone, and welcome back to another GameDay Squad Aussie Rules live stream. No Cow today. He has gone on holidays. He is on top of the starter seasonal rankings, and he has booked a trip straight to Cancun to celebrate his victory. He's had enough. But all jokes aside, we're here to talk about some Aussie Rules fantasy, and I'm joined by a familiar face, a good friend in Bales, DT Bales. How are you going? Are you ready to talk some fantasy footy with me?
Yeah, good, mate. Yeah, good to get the late call up. So we're sort of ready to have a night in, but then had to get the call from the coach and get the boots on, get the kit on, and sort of shape up ready to go for live show tonight. But no, good. Hopefully bouncing back from a bit of an annoying week. We chatted obviously on our YouTube channel last night about how I had Tom Stewart across a few teams last week and didn't score too great. And in GameDay Squad, when you have an injury, that's really what can affect you, obviously, in the week because it's obviously week to week. And season prize is great, but weekly is also where it's at as well. So unfortunate. But, hey, he's named this week. Baz, hopefully this week as well. And hopefully we can have another good week, mate. So looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, look, what we're going to do for everyone that's watching along, we're going to go through some of the lineups and the big news, which, good thing, there isn't too much, which is great. A lot of good players are playing. We're going to go through some rankings that I put together for the round. And then Bales is going to show off his classic squad that he's rolling into this week. Bales, we're going to have some questions throughout the show. We'll answer any ones as we go along. We'll probably start with a couple that have already been dropped. But everyone's excited this round because the GameDay Squad Cup is starting as of this week. And it's a knockout and elimination tournament. It's starter league orientated or competition orientated. So make sure you're setting your starter squads. You would have received an email if you qualified, but some of the rewards are awesome, Bales. It's one of a kind. This has never been done before in this space. And I know a lot of our coaches are pumped, and we're super pumped to get this competition going. And hopefully, fingers crossed, I can survive the first round. How are you feeling about it?
Yeah, good. Yeah, got the email, qualified, which is good. So it would have been pretty sad if I wasn't able to qualify for it. But yeah, hopefully we don't get any early injuries that could potentially mean I'm not there next week. So hopefully we get through a few rounds and can get some good rewards. And yeah, might be able to see at the end, mate. Maybe in the grand final. Who knows?
Yeah, well, I think, what is it? It's 9 rounds or something like that. So you've got to go a long way, and there's a lot of really good competitors and coaches that you'll be facing. But look, without further ado, let's get into some rankings and let's start answering some of these questions that have been dropped in the chat. So I'll pull them up, Bales, as we go along here, and then we can talk about them. But this one here from Desync, does the weather in the Brisbane v Geelong game change anything? Bales, I'll let you take it away, and then I'll talk about some of my rankings and how it might affect that.
Yeah, it does, Desync. It does change a fair bit, I think. It will positively impact some players, but also negatively impact a lot of players as well. So if you're looking at a Sam De Koning in the ruck, I wouldn't be looking at that. Obviously, the good thing is Reece Stanley hasn't come in, so he will be the main ruck. So that could also be a good thing as well for Sam De Koning. He's one that's probably 50-50. It could go one of two ways with him. But then you look at guys like, I don't think you'd be playing a Tom Stewart after the injury anyway, but you're not looking at playing a guy like him. I don't think you're playing any of the guys that rely on marks. Like, I don't think you're looking at a Brian Myers or a Jeremy Cameron or anyone like that. But like a Josh Dunkley, I think, is probably locked into a lot of our sides. There were squads this week. I think that you might even be able to have a dabble of Lockie Neal because Mark O'Connor's been dropped as well. So if you were looking maybe there, maybe Lockie Neal can get a few tackles. I think the big one, Tom, and you've got him at number 2 there, so I'm sure you'll chat about this in your rankings. But with the weather, Dane Zorko is the one that I'm interested to get your take on because I'm thinking about fading him. He's currently in my squads at the moment, but I'm a bit worried with this weather. We have seen him score well in the wet, so there is a chance that he stays there. But your thoughts on Zorko and then obviously kicking into your rankings?
Yeah, for sure. Well, the weather definitely does impact, and that's proven time and time again when it comes to fantasy. One thing that I would consider is that someone's play style might impact or be impacted more so than another player's by the weather. And like you alluded to, really hard inside mids who are going to tackle and get their hands around it and, still be able to score points. It actually might be a good thing for some of them, like a Neal or a Dunkley who can go late 15, 10 tackles in the wet and, still be able to output some score and throw the footy on the boot. But for others like Zorko, who play a bit more of a skill game and executing out of the back line and the chip kicks and a mark and a handball, like you're just not going to see that as much when it's in the wet and when it's sloppy conditions. So it will impact his game. How much though? Yeah, that's I guess the question everyone's going to try to answer. But let's get into the rankings. And my number one ranked defender for this round is Lachie Whitfield. He just has such a high floor in terms of fantasy. It's going to be a great game and could be game of the round. What is it? Hawks versus the Giants. So it's two top teams going head to head.
Travesty that Brisbane, Geelong, and Hawthorn GWS is on the exact same time. Absolute travesty, because I think all of us would want to be watching both those games, and they're both stuck there. Obviously, that's the unfortunate of the Cyclone Alfred obviously happening, and so the reschedule is that they reschedule on the Saturday, being that now it clashes with a really good game.
Yeah, 100%. So look, that is tough. But look, which match with the match center now in GameDay Squad, you can be watching one and then have the match center for the other and see all the stats as they come in, so you know exactly what is going on. My rank number 2, big asterisk here, and it's Dane Zorko because of the things that we just spoke about. So knowing Brisbane and now living up on the Gold Coast, I know how quick the weather can change and turn. So there's a chance we get there and it's 30 degrees and sunny. But look, all reports are saying it's going to be pretty wet. It's going to be a sloppy game, to say the least. And Zorko might be someone that sort of fades back towards that 7 to 10 range rather than being locked in at number 2. So on a better day with better conditions, I would have him at number 2. No worries at all. But put an asterisk there, proceed with caution, and definitely just keep an eye on everything that's happening. The King Cheezel versus the Crows is going to be a really tough game for them, but I still think Cheezel has enough upside and he's going to be playing in the midfield, and I just think you've got to get him in your squads. He's one of those players where if you don't play him, he's going to burn you because he just has such a floor and such good potential to score big every single round. One of my favourite defenders for the year is at 4 is Isaiah Wanganeen-Millera. He has been fantastic. He hasn't had a game. I think he's averaging 20 kicks per game. He had one with 19 and one with 21. So when you're kicking the ball that much and with the role that he is an absolute must start. Make sure you get him in your defense. And speaking of must start to start the year, Bailey Dale. Wow, he started off hot. No Bont, no Treloar. They need some of their players to step up, use the ball a little bit more. And Bailey Dale has definitely seen the benefit sort of with this situation. So although he's a defender, he does like to come high up the ground and link the ball to the attack. And I still think he's in for a really big round. Bales, we're halfway through. Why don't you give me some thoughts on the rankings so far?
Ranks are good. There's just one massive name that you don't currently have in your top 10 at all, and I'm wondering why he's not, and that's Jack Sinclair. So he's come up against in a really good matchup against Richmond, and I think he could go massive this week and be arguably the number 1 defender. He's got the ceiling to do that. So I'm just wondering how come he's not in there. Did you maybe forget about the old Sink there, or what's going on?
Miller is in there. Sinclair's tough. I probably think I'm a little bit different, but I had this curse last year, Bales, where I could never pick between Millera and Sinclair. And every time I start one, the other's going to do really well. So my rankings here might allude to what's going to happen in this round and exactly what you just said. I bet you Sinclair will be the best scoring defender or one of, and Wanganeen-Millera will have, for his standards or by his standards, a bad round. So if you followed along last year in 2024, you know that my track record with these two players is horrible. So when I think one's going to be better, it's probably in your best interest to start the other.
So what you're telling me is I should put a bronze Wanganeen-Millera in my team and put go and buy diamonds Jack
highest,
Sinclair or a platinum and just chuck
rarity.
it into the classic team and hope that he goes well. That's what I'm hearing.
My track record is saying absolutely do that. Yes. Yes, 100% it is. I'm seeing some questions come in, and there's about some other different line groups. I think we'll pull them up as we go along into those line groups. So if you've got any defender-specific ones, drop them in now. Otherwise, we'll get to the other ones I can see here. Stain saying Zorko is a pig. Yes.
Yeah,
Does
and
love.
normally, if you hear that in any other situation other than fantasy, you're like, "How dare you say that about Dane Zorko?" But in fantasy, that is a term of endearment, and it's fantastic. And
It's a compliment. Yeah.
LG Stein, I absolutely agree with what you just said.
For sure, for sure. This is a really good one, Bales. Thoughts on Kane Farrell? Had a ripper round last round. One of the top 7 scoring defenders. I think he sat at about 4th, something like that. Give me some thoughts. Should he be in my top 10 here? And what's your thoughts on a play, maybe going a bit left field and starting a Kane Farrell for this round?
I think it's definitely a play, D-Sync. It's for sure. Good matchup against the Bombers this week. Obviously, we saw the Crows and the number of players that went big. The only worry I have with the Kane Farrell, particularly in GameDay Squad, is that I don't know if he's got the ceiling to match it with some of the Whitfields and the Sheasels and guys like that on any given week. But also, Port loves sharing it around there. They've got Farrell, they've got Bergman, they've got Jace Burgoyne. They've got all these names. I've probably forgotten one or two others as well that they all get involved. And I don't think there's never really going to be one that Farrell's probably the 1A, but there's probably like a 1B, 1C, 1D in that team that sort of take their fair share as well. So for me, I probably wouldn't for my own squad personally. But if you're keen on it, you like the matchup, by all means, he's got a great matchup. And this is what we're after, right? We're after these good matchups. Can these players put up a good score? And I think Farrell could be one of those players that does do that this week.
Yes, agreed. And the only thing I'd proceed with caution is just, I guess, as you said, the floor. And I guess the reason the floor isn't there is because there's a couple of other ball users that, might have a day rather than Farrell. We saw Logan Evans last round score 131, had 19 kicks, I think it's a good play in terms of a pod because I can't imagine too many people go Kane Farrell. And then if he goes boom, what a start to your round in a really tasty matchup. So I don't mind it at all, actually. And if there's a round to do it, it's a really good one starting tonight. So why not? If that's how you're feeling, if you've got that gut feel, send it. But for me personally, I'll probably avoid just for this round and maybe look at doing a pod like that a little later. And I don't know about you, but Thursdays have been decimating my squad. I just can't seem to make good squad decisions on a Thursday. So maybe that's also playing into it. Maybe I'm a bit scared, a bit hesitant.
Yep.
I got a good one here. Bales, read this. Just an opinion question. Do you think it's unfair to debut and get stuck as the sub?
Yep. Yes. I've said this for ages. I hate when, and it's funny, right? Because my Crows are doing it with Sid Draper at the moment. I feel like their first game, like, just don't put him as sub. Like, put him on the ground. Like, fair if they sub him out, whatever, right? They've started the game, whatever, but like start them on the ground, get them into the action early. Like they don't want to be sitting and waiting on. Or if they start on the bench, they'll come on, they'll get a big cheer, but not as a sub. I just because every player before the last few when we've had the sub, right, I said I debuted, played the whole game, however, right. But these players recently are like, I come for 5 minutes, come for a quarter, come for 2 quarters. It's just I don't know, but hopefully the sub rule's gone next year anyway, so hopefully we don't have to worry about it.
Yes, and I'll pull up one more, and then I'll fly through the rest of these rankings here, defenders, and move on to mids. Flanders is in, Bales. We spoke about with Tommy Stewart, I think you were saying, and then also Flanders are probably the 2 big names you would say from team list getting dropped. What do we think? I think it's a big no-no to rush into someone coming back off an injury. A concussion, I think, is a little different. An injury where it's a muscle or ligament, you tend to see players a little bit hesitant. Maybe they don't exactly have that confidence in sort of their body or whatever's happened yet. And quite commonly it will lead to a subpar game in terms of fantasy. So would you be going into a Flanders understanding that when he's healthy, he's one of the best defenders to possibly play? What's your thoughts there?
Yeah, I wouldn't be touching Flanders this week. I think that you got there's 3 issues as to why you shouldn't be playing him. So one, we don't really know exactly what his role will be, right? We think he's going to be this mid-forward role, but how much for split is that going to be? We don't know. So I want to see it first before looking in. But all you got to see is 1 week and a decent enough score, then you can put him in your squad, right? Second thing, back injury. Really, really, I guess, not injuries you want to be playing around with. And he's had obviously a fair bit of time off, and I just think he'll be underdone. So I wouldn't be doing that. And then 3 is the fact that he's having a limited preseason, right? He's not going to be up to full fitness yet. He's going to have a few weeks to do that. So I would be watching and waiting on a Flanders.
For sure. And yeah, I totally agree. Again, as I said, I don't like rushing back from injuries. I like to just let it play out a little bit and then get that sort of upside a bit later on once they're a bit more confident. But some great questions. Keep bringing them on. We'll keep answering as we go through. But the bottom half here, Holmes in the wet, that could suit him. But the only thing is, he's not traditionally known as a tackling midfielder. He sort of sits around that 4 to 5 a game. You would need to see a good bump in that number in order for him to be sort of startable in this one. Because in terms of play style, it's not exactly what you're looking for. Some wet weather footy. He is really good through the middle, and he does like to get the ball in the boot. But yeah, if he can get to sort of 8 to 10 tackles, I think it's a great play. I'm just not exactly confident whether he will be able to do it in the wet. But again, pending some conditions. Nick Martin there, just at 7. Maybe lucky to get number 7. He's been a little disappointing in my opinion. But this game tonight, I do think Port get on top, but I do think Nick Martin will have a bit of a license to run around the ground to be able to get his hands on the footy. And hopefully that's going to equal a really good fantasy game. Luke Ryan, a 2024 All-Star, not in my starting 7, but just edging out at 8. Look, if I second guess myself with the Zorko, I still think I'll start Zorko, but if for whatever reason, whether it's Holmes or Zorko, Luke Ryan's the next man up, and he's playing on a Sunday, so you will be able to make that substitution with the rolling lockout. And we just haven't seen that boom game yet. And in a game against West Coast, on the West Coast, it's going to be a fantastic thriller. I just don't know how much of an impact he'll have, but he'd be pretty safe as an option. Sicily, bit of a question mark on what his role, but gosh, if he can get it going, he's so good and he's so versatile. I do see him playing defense with Hogan back. Their forward line, the Giants, is humming at the moment, but we'll see with game script. But it could be a great play. And Salem, probably the star to start this season, or one of the more unexpected stars. He's been playing so good. He has such a good average, a really good role, and I can see him continually to move forward and continue to put up some good numbers. So wouldn't be expecting the 150s or 130s we've seen from him in the first 2, but around more of that 110 to 120 mark, I can see him punching out again with his role at the moment. So,
and Stephen May's back tonight as well. Not tonight. He was named tonight as well. So he should be back on Saturday. So that's also a bit of a flag that obviously May loves a kick in. Obviously he seals them off everyone, a bit like Luke Ryan. So yeah, that for Sun's a little bit of a flag, but good matchup against Gold Coast nonetheless.
Yep, for sure. Alrighty, Bales, let's get into the midfielders. We do have a midfielder question.
Number 1. Love the number 1 ranking.
Let's start with number 1 and we can get into the question here. Yeah, number 1 is Jordan Dawson. I've been banging this drum for a pretty long time. I think Jordan Dawson is one of the most underrated players in the entire competition. Well, so in terms of fantasy, I think in terms of the actual game, people understand how good Jordan Dawson is. But when he moved to the midfield last year, I think a lot of people sort of crossed his name out. And I'm like, no, what are we doing? Jordan Dawson is still going to put up really good fantasy numbers. And even if he was playing back in defense, he would still be one of the best fantasy performers. He had a 127-point average the year he played defense on GameDay Squad. Last year, it actually dropped by 1. But nonetheless, he started the season on fire. His average is like 150-something at the moment. He's unbelievable. Bales, I'm sure you could talk about it for days. But for me, with Cal sort of always alluding to maybe Dawson isn't in the top 6, in the top 5 mids each round last year, I think he's turned a leaf or turned a page in this chapter, and he's now fully on board the Dawson train as well. Yeah.
For the sake of time, we'll move, but I could talk about Dawson, as you know, for a while. But no, Dawson, he's a squad lock at the moment for me.
That's it. Talk about merit though. Does Hinkley or Kinkley there go get a tag on him, or do you think he's going to sort of allow his boys to play and for Merritt to sort of run free? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, so Merritt's actually, we'll go through my squad a little bit later on, but he's not currently in there in my classic squad. And
spicy.
And it's, as you say, Drew, I think will go to Zach Merritt tonight. I think it's the obvious sort of tag, and I think Port need to win this game. Make sure that Eston sort of don't blitz them early, because we know Eston can do that at Marvel. So I think they're going to tag Merritt, and particularly of how well he played last week as well, right? And add to that Port Adelaide are a tough matchup as it is. That's what I'm personally fading him. But he started very well, and if you're still keen on him and you think you can get it done still, I think there's no problem whatsoever putting him into your squad.
Yeah, absolutely, mate. Absolutely. Alrighty, let's keep it moving. I've got Dunkley. Maybe one of the players might not positively impacted, but will still perform well or quite well in wet weather footy is Dunkley. He loves to lay a tackle, loves a cuddle, as they say around here, and he's going to put up some good points. Maybe he doesn't have the same ceiling as whether it's dry and he can push forward and kick goals and sort of had that sort of impact with that all-around game that he has, but I still see him as being one of the best performing mids for the round. Merritt hopefully doesn't get tagged, but in all honesty, he probably will. We know how good Merritt is, and I don't think they're going to be too keen on letting him run amok in that midfield with how good he has been. But I still think his fantasy floor is there, and even when he has been tagged in the past, we've still seen him put up some pretty good performances. So I wouldn't be completely shying away from Zachy Merritt. I just think maybe the upside comes down that little bit, but he's still a play for me. I'm loving it. One of the hottest mids in the comp, Rosie, just must start at the moment. Good matchup, good form, no butters, the best player in his team.
Yeah. Good flag there from D-Sync in the chat there. Durham could go to Rosie as well. That is definitely a flag. Obviously, Horn Francis also in the mix for a bit of attention. But even with Durham Wright, he went to Dawson last week, and Dawson still went big. So whether that's just I think that's a bit more of Dawson compared to a Durham tag. So Rosie could have a lower score tonight, but I think with how good he's been, Eston's a great matchup. Good recent history against the Bombers for Rosie as well. I think he's in my squad this week.
Yeah, love it. Noah Anderson playing. He's had a great start. Only one game against West Coast. This will be sort of maybe his true test to see the sort of year that we can expect from him. But I'm thinking he's good to go. Away from home at the MCG. It'll be interesting to see. Sammy Walsh just missing out. We'll see. I might regret that one. But look, didn't have a great start to the year. Had a really good round last round. He's been pretty damaging in front of goals, which has been a really big upside. But a bit of a pod next to him, Tommy Liberatore. He's safe. He's super safe. I feel like he's got 120 just like locked in already. So if you're not looking for a high upside player, but you want that fantasy floor, Tom Liberatore is a great shout to get into your mids. Cripper, it's just Cripper, and Caldwell. I sort of put him in here because I was thinking,
smoky.
Zachy Merritt gets tagged. Does it open the door for Caldwell to come in and just sort of eat a lot of those touches and possessions that Merritt might normally get? I think so. So if you're a bit nervous on the Merritt tag, maybe Caldwell's a bit of a sway when everyone's going with Merritt.
Yep.
All righty, let's move it along. Rucks, only 5 here, but I feel like the top 2 or top 3, I'm going to say, you can pick out of the 3. I don't think you should really consider the bottom end there, but Tristan Cherry, one of the best players. He's just amazing. He goes up against good rucks and makes them look silly, and he's got the Crows this weekend. And Riley O'Brien's going to have a tough day in the office. And with a mobile ruck like Cherry, he's going to be awesome. Rowan Marshall had the greatest one-round turnaround we've ever seen out of anyone. He's back, baby. Get him in your squad.
Good matchup as well. Richmond. Nank's a good ruck, but he scores points, but also gives up points. So Marshall, I think he could be the potential number 1 scoring player this week. He's got the ceiling and the matchup to boot. So, I think he's a must start this week.
And TDK, how good has he been to start this year? So just fantastic player. Sort of just misses out. Maybe doesn't have the same upside as a Cherry and a Marshall, but wow, he's just a really good, safe player. If you want to get him in, I can see why you would want to start TDK on any given round, let alone on Friday against the Doggies, going up against my old boy. Well, still my boy, Tingles. Where's he been? Goodness.
Tingles.
Let's move on, though. Conscious of time. And, Bales, we got to get through your squad. I think the forwards are pretty vanilla. The top there, Smith, McRae, Daniels, Rankin. I've got more in. I'm believing in him. I'm not forgetting about how good he has been. And against the Giants, where I see it's a bit of a close game, I think someone like Moore steps up and, has been a little disappointing. Had 57 last round in the wet. Had 80 or 89 in, I think it was round 0. So he's had 3 games now. This is his 4th. But he did have a big 123 sort of in there, a big boom that we saw from him. So I'm believing in the boom, and I think he's going to be just fine. Brian Myers, put a big asterisk on this one. If it's wet, this is not a start. I don't think you should be putting Myers in at all. His role and the way he plays is way too dependent on clean footy and skill execution. And in the wet, it's just not going to happen. So Horn Francis, you can bump him up. And I've got a bit of You're going to say Jackson, and I'll let you talk about your squad in a second here. So you might want to get that ready to pull up Bales because we'll hop straight into it. But Shy Bolton, first time playing in the West Coast matchup, I'm thinking he's going to be really, really good. I'm keen on Shy Bolton, and I think he's a good play. If Myers and I fade him, I'm going Bolton. I'm going big with him.
Yeah. He's definitely someone you could consider. I just worry that don't know if he's got enough mid-time to put up that ceiling score, but I don't mind him. And Brian Myers, as you said, I'd cross out with the wet weather and the matchup this week. But I do think Horn Francis will bounce back tonight, right? He's struggled the first couple of games, hasn't scored well enough, but I just think he's too good a player to be down for this long. So I do expect him to bounce back.
Well, talk to us about your squad. You can keep going here. Talk to me about some of the players that you're looking at that are going to play well. And, just go through it.
Yeah, so Azorko's obviously the one he's still there. I'm just whether he's going to be there or not. I think he can still score well enough in the wet that he's currently there. But I've got a couple of the West Freo defenders to pivot to if I so wish. Nasir and Sinclair locks for me this week with the fact that they're playing against Richmond. So I like those two in there. Whitfield, as you mentioned before, number 1 ranked this week, and I think he'll go really well against the Hawks, along with Sheasel and Jaden Short, who really good matchup against the Saints this week. I think he'll rack up there under the roof and put up his biggest score of the season. I think so. He's in there. Midfield hasn't changed a great deal. I think there's probably 2 changes from what I normally have, but Dawson, Rosie, Dunkley have been there for pretty much most weeks so far this season, and along with even Noah Anderson has been, he was in there round 1, wasn't there last week because of the bye, but he is back in this week. I think he, as a captain, I know he's away from home, doesn't normally score great, but I think that he'll go well enough. And then I've also got Clayton Oliver. We talked about him last night, and I think he's back and slowly working back to that real uber elite territory that we know he can be for GameDay Squad. So he's there. And then Caleb Sarong with the West Coast matchup has been pretty good against him in the past. Hasn't necessarily put up ceiling scores against them, but the matchup there is too good to really pass up. So he's there.
Cherry Marshall, safe option. Love it.
Yeah, exactly. Cherry Marshall locked in there as well. I did think about deconing over Cherry just as a bit of a pod play. TDK's got a better matchup, but I just think I don't really think I can go against the Big X, who could go real massive in any week, and everyone's starting him. So I think it's just a bit risky to go against him. And the forward line, as you mentioned, is probably a bit vanilla. McRae, Smith, Daniel, Rankin, Horn Francis, and Dylan Moore. Probably most people's 6 in most weeks. But I got Luke Jackson there. Solo ruck this week. Reedy's named on the extended bench. I don't expect him to play. I think Jackson played pretty well last week. I don't know exactly who West Coast ruck is this week, if they name someone, if Bailey Williams got named or not. I'm just having a quick look at that as I'm talking. But I just think even still, Luke Jackson's the main ruck. We know he can score big in this role. And I think in a forward line where there's not a huge amount of options, I think he is a pretty good play. So Bailey Williams named as the ruck there. And Matt Flynn is on the bench. So we'll see if one of those guys are named. Archer Reed there as well. But I think Luke Jackson can put up a good score this week. So that's my squad this week. Hopefully can go well.
Beautiful, mate. What a squad. A lot of similarities, but definitely that point of difference play or between us. Some different players, and can definitely see a lot of the. You've gone with Clayton Oliver in there. He's had a pretty good start to his season. Caleb Sarong in that matchup, I didn't have him, and you've gone short as well. So a lot of different players, and could keep going. But
people will probably look at the rarities and see like, why have you only got Whitfield bronze, or why have you only got a Rosie bronze, or whatever. I guess it's just the balance of the 3 squads, because I try and do well in starter, classic, and challenger. I've got enough players to go across there, so. In a normal world, right? Okay, I'd probably want maybe an Oliver and a Dunkley silver, and then go Rosie up to a silver as well. Maybe go Whitfield up to a silver. Maybe go Nasai down to a silver as well, and maybe put it on Jack McRae. But just with the way the rarities work and what I've got in the club, this is the way it ended out. So, but I'm pretty keen on all these players.
Yeah, nice. Let's go through a couple of questions here. No Carl Amon this week. Didn't even get into the top 10. Bales isn't in your squad as well. What's your thoughts on Carl Amon? Because in all honesty, it's a pretty nice matchup against the Giants.
Yeah, I normally see the Giants a tough matchup though, so that's why he's not currently in my squad at all. But again, he's someone that plays the exact same time as Zorko. If I want to pivot on the night, I can easily go to Amon. So he was another one. I almost prefer him over the Freo guys. I said the Freo guys the pivot option, but I'd almost go an Amon over one of those 2 guys, because Down at Utah's
Okay.
could go quite well. So yeah,
Yeah.
definitely an option to pivot to, but not currently in the squad.
Another one here, Simka. He had a really good week. He's been playing pretty solid as a forward, I guess, all year.
Yep.
I think I know what you're about to say, so I'll let you take it away. But look, great role, but pretty tough matchup this round.
Yeah, the matchup and being away from home as well, being at Adelaide Oval and against the Crows who have started hot. Whether they can continue it, I hope so. But yeah, just for me this week, Simpkin, he's a world where he goes 110, 120 points in GameDay Squad, but there's also a world where he could pump a 40 or a 50. So yeah, I'm just probably steering clear of him this week, but definitely someone that's got to be in your sort of 8 to 10 forwards that you might rotate through your squad on any given week, because we know he's got a ceiling, and if he's got a good matchup, he's definitely someone to consider.
Absolutely. Well, Bales, we're about to wrap this all up, but before we go, again, GDS Cup starts this round. We're pumped. Make sure that you get your starter squads locked in. You're going to have to fill out the full 22 spots before the first bounce, which is only, 13 minutes away now. So make sure you've done that, because then you'll be eligible, if you've got that email, to then compete and hopefully move on within the bracket. I don't know if Auntie Booger's here tonight, but the best of luck. That's my matchup. I found out. So a good friend of mine, I would say. So not a very nice pull for round one. I wish I got Cal so I could do the honors of chopping him out of the competition. But that's just how the cookie crumbles. Bales, mate, you're about to go along to a watch along. So why don't you talk a little bit about that and then give us some final comments?
Yeah, so just doing a watch along for the game tonight. Do it every week over on the AFL Fantasy Fanatics YouTube channel. So watching the fantasy scores, they're just the AFL fantasy scores, but you can follow along. They're not too dissimilar to the Game Day Squad scores, so you get a fair idea. All you got to do is add extra point for a kick and a couple of points for a goal. So if you want to come along and get in some chat and chat some, not just fantasy, but also some just footy chat, really anything within reason, obviously. But happy to chat with that and watch the game together. Get a good crowd in this season, which is good. So if you want to jump over there, then feel free to jump over to the Fantasy Fanatics YouTube channel.
For sure. Beautiful, mate. Well, a couple more. Auntie Boogers away tonight. And Mel, I didn't want to show my squad as well, because I feel like my rankings are my squad. So like the top, I didn't want to double up and show you. But yeah, all my rankings are I guess the people I'm starting. And then anyone that's sort of above, if I'm fading anyone throughout the week because of conditions, etc., you sort of know who I'm going to be subbing into that spot. I'm through them. What's this? Don't think Tom wants to give it away. Yeah, maybe. What if I'm keeping it secret? Yeah. Keeping it secret. Well, if you do some investigating, you'll be able to see all of mine in the rankings. You'll be able to see my starter squad last night on a fantasy show that I did. So nothing's in secret. You can find everything I'm doing on the interweb somewhere. So keep your eyes peeled. Go have a look. Alrighty, Bales, mate. Thanks for coming along. Thanks to everyone for dropping some comments.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Best of luck. Good luck in the GDS Cup. Just don't do better than me if you're versing me, Auntie Booger, please. But to everyone else, have a great round of footy. Thanks for coming along, and we'll catch all you legends in the next one. Peace out, everyone.